It's summertime and I'm ready to rest, relax, and catch some rays.
Well, don't forget your sunscreen.
Of course I won't. I also won't forget my Kefla Organics CBD.
Good plan. Kefla Organics is one of my favorite ways to relax and enjoy the benefits of CBD, whether I'm at home with a tea, reading some true crime, or laying at the beach on my day off.
Kefla Organics is a fair trade, vegan, refined sugar-free CBD company. And at KeflaOrganics.com, you'll find chocolate bars, hot cocoa, chai lattes, and more, making the taking of CBD a lot more enjoyable than a regular tincture.
And Murder in the Rain listeners can get 20% off using the promo code RAIN20.
So follow at Enjoy Kefla on social media and visit KeflaOrganics.com. Use the code RAIN20 at checkout to save 20% while enjoying guilt-free, stress-reducing, sleep-assisting, delicious Kefla Organics CBD products. It's Halloween, and since we love this holiday, we are celebrating by releasing 2 episodes this week. First, you'll hear Alisha's story of The Institution. And on Thursday, the 29th, Emily will be telling you a tale of The Death Echo. Be sure to follow us on social media and subscribe so you don't miss any of our treats or tricks.
I'm Emily Rowney.
And I'm Alisha Holland.
This is Bill Camp, the voice of Forensic Files 2 on HLN, and you're listening to Murder in the Rain.
Just a few days ago, my 13-year career in education, 7 of which were spent in mental health facilities, came to an end. Thanks, COVID. But I'm excited, albeit terrified, to start my new career focusing on being a creator. It's a dream, really, but I'm going to miss my kids and coworkers. Throughout those years, I have heard over and over, as I'm sure anyone listening that works in any kind of care or service job does, you're a saint. It takes a certain kind of person to do that job. Wow, you must have never-ending patience. I struggle with those statements, and not just because I hate compliments. It was my job. It was my calling. It was always the easiest and most difficult job. You know, like being a parent, except to a lot of kids that aren't yours. I also felt like a lot of times those praisings came from a place of unknowing and maybe even fear. When I say mental health facility, I'm not sure what you picture, but I can guess based off what I used to think and what movies and TV have made me think. You picture a large, ominous building that, even though it has only been abandoned for 20 years, it is totally rotting from the inside. The paint and wallpaper hang atop itself. There's a mix of vandalism from people breaking in now and the remains of the musings of mad people. Everything is sepia-toned. There are sporadic bed frames and mattresses with springs exposed. And for no damn reason, there's a baby carriage. Windows are broken, hallways are dark. You walk by an empty room to see a rocking chair rocking on its own. And if that is what you picture, it does sound scary. So if someone is doing something you think is scary, you're going to think them saintly and the like. But please, even though today's story might sound scary, for the most part, facilities like this that are operational today are nothing like what you picture. So let's squash that stigma right now. I had always worked in school settings, though, where with the exception of extra break spaces, locked doors, and seeing kids in restraints, you wouldn't know it was anything besides a school. I will say, since this is Halloween, I have had a ghostly encounter at one of my buildings, and I'd like to share it as it's spooky. I had just started with a new organization, and within a few days, I had my first restraint, which for anyone that has done this type of work, you know this is like a football player being called off the bench or a soldier in their first gunfight. It's a time to step up and show your team you are capable, calm, supportive of the client and their safety, and aware of your surroundings so you can cover for your teammates. So it's my first restraint with one of our larger and more aggressive students. To give you an idea of how strong he was, he struggled with the bad habit of pulling his own teeth out with his fingers.
Oh.
Anywho, so there were 8 staff involved in the restraint, and I was on one of the client's legs. Before I knew it, he had maneuvered his leg to where I was between his calf and the corner of a wall that had a metal plate on it, so it wouldn't get destroyed if it was kicked. Then I felt a staff member push on my back to step over me to switch out a teammate. When they did, they pushed their hand on my ribs, and with the pressure from the kiddo's leg and the wall, it was all too much. I had my hood over my face for spit and bite protection, so I couldn't see who it was. But as I was losing my breath, I yelled out, "Get off of me, I can't breathe," and I twisted what I could of my back to try to get them off. They got the memo and they moved over quickly. A while later, the restraint was over and my coworker and I were debriefing. She then hesitantly asked me what I was yelling about with my back. I explained the situation and she responded with, "That's what we thought." I was clearly confused, so she went on to explain that as I was saying that, her and our supervisor looked over to each other, baffled as to what I was referencing. She went on to say, "There was no one there. No one was on your back." I'm telling you, I felt every detail of that hand and the pressure. I could tell the difference between the wall and the leg and the hand, but I didn't want to sound like I didn't know what was happening, so I just left it with a, must have been a ghost, ha ha ha. Her face dropped. I tilted my head inquisitively and she said, "Yeah, I have a name for him." I was gobsmacked. "Excuse me?" She then explained to me that a few years prior, when our school was a residential facility, meaning the clients lived on campus and went to school, whereas we were used for school hours only, a 12-year-old boy had hung himself in the bathroom, the next door over from where I was being pushed into the wall. "Sometimes things go missing from our office," she continued. "I blame him." So yes, perhaps negative energies can stay in places or present in different ways. Personally, I struggle with letting the dead rest and hoping they carry on with us. And perhaps these buildings with such intense energy in them for years on end can continue holding that energy even after the residents have passed. And so often that energy and inability to move on is connected to years of abuse, neglect, medical torture, and lack of accountability on the part of the perpetrators of such acts. And when it comes to those, there was a facility in Salem, Oregon that checked all the boxes. Now it's just another former mental health facility that was built 100 years ago, has been abandoned, and turned into the macabre vision we all imagine. And that place is the Fairview Training Center.
Many of the patients need daily or more frequent simple medications administered by practical nurses. Kosher Cottage is somewhat like a special hospital for the chronically ill. The very young chronically ill who have the additional complication of being mentally retarded. Occasionally, emergency treatment is needed, and for this, the cottage is equipped and prepared.
Established in 1907, it had the less PC moniker of State Institution for the Feeble-Minded. As a hospital, it started with 39 patients, which had come from the Oregon Insane Asylum. Then came 1923, when Oregon did what I love to talk about best, created a horrific law. Don't worry, it's not racist this time, but it is terrible. The dictionary definition of eugenics is the study of how to arrange reproduction within a human population to increase the occurrence of heritable characteristics regarded as desirable. You can probably guess where this story is going. That's right, the Oregon State Legislature passed the bill called To Prevent Procreation of Certain Classes of Oregon. For 64 years, the Oregon State Board of Eugenics, which was created post the bill passing into law, forced the sterilization of over 2,600 Oregonians, making Oregon one of only 33 states to practice eugenics. This board of people was charged with deciding whom of the patients would receive sterilization. Those that were chosen fell under the categories of insane, feeble-minded, epileptic, habitual criminals, moral degenerates, sexual perverts, sexual deviants, antisocials, and menaces to the public. So basically, we all definitely qualify.
Yeah, I was going to say.
From the inception of the law until just 6 years later, over 300 sterilizations took place at Fairview. That law may sound bad, but at least it was better than the law from 1893 that prohibited any man that was epileptic, imbecilic, or feeble-minded from marriage or intercourse with a woman under 45 years old. Granted, idiotic men shouldn't get to bask in the company of marvelous women, but that's different. Staying true to Oregon form, we were the only state that had people organized against the practice of sterilization. But to say it took a while for anyone to listen would be an understatement. Fairview Training Center was home to anyone that struggled with developmental and physical disabilities, no different than the kids I worked with. They just needed someone to listen to them and treat them like everyone else was being treated. And according to their own words, that is what they were doing.
It is important to realize that these people are relatively happy in the facilities provided by the state of Oregon. They don't need pity nearly as much as your continued knowledge of their existence and the support necessary to maintain proper care and treatment. There are a few patients in Patterson who are capable of simple craft and hobby activities, but because of their physical handicaps, they are unable to attend the school on Fairview's grounds. A special teacher visits Patterson to encourage and help these children to develop recreational skills.
That audio came from the hard-to-watch and very creepy training film In Our Care, which is on YouTube. It shows a video of the children playing in very plain and empty rooms and only with each other. It's heartbreaking. There were multiple cottages on the property, allowing for different ages and abilities to be housed together. Then came time for release. We would now call it being discharged, but they also called their clients inmates, just to give you an idea on how they were viewed. Anyway, if a client was deemed fit for discharge, they were not allowed to just go home. They or their guardians would have to sign an agreement to sterilization, because it was that or stay institutionalized. The sterilizations came in all forms, from vasectomies to removal of fallopian tubes, all the way to castrations.
I lived in Fairview from 65 to 72. I was one of these people who got sterilized. My dad and I had to sign a paper that I did not understand until afterwards. I did not have a choice. Before people got to go out in the community from Fairview, they would have to have a sterilization. Every one of us.
That was the voice of Ruth Morris, a survivor of Fairview. When she was a teenager, she was all set to leave after spending time in the deplorable conditions of the center. But her father had to make a choice: have his daughter back home but sterilized, or have her stay in the hospital. So he made that choice, and Ruth came home, not fully understanding the weight of what had happened to her. But I don't want you to think that the practice of eugenics was the only terrible thing happening there, because of course there was a history of abuse. With a growing population ballooning to over 1,300 clients or inmates by 1981, it sounds like the staff never received the training we all do now. Instead of collaborative problem solving, they would use verbal and physical abuse, sometimes accompanied with leather cuffs, straitjackets, sedatives, cow whips, isolation, hot water, and razor straps to enforce expectations. There's even an account from a former employee that stated he saw clients handcuffed to 60-pound blocks before being forced to push them through the hallways. The unnatural cause of death rate of clients at Fairview was twice as high as those that didn't reside in the facility. All of these claims led to an investigation and substantiation, which halted federal funding. But from what I was able to find, no charges for the abuse or deaths were ever brought forward. It wasn't until 1983 that the eugenics law was revoked. That was not very long ago, like at all. I mean, as far as years go, that was very recent. And is not old.
Was that your birth year?
It was, like, so recent. Then in 2000, the doors to Fairview closed forever. And in 2002, Governor John Kitzhaber made a formal apology to the victims of the law, the practice of sterilization, and the over 10,000 clients that had passed through Fairview's doors.
The time has come to apologize for public policies that labeled people as defective. To those who suffered, I say the people of Oregon are sorry.
I felt good that he apologized.
I know that the opening to this hellhole being over 100 years ago makes this feel far away, but victims of these practices are still living. After all, they ended only 37 years ago. One such victim that deserved an apology was Molly Daly. She was only 2 years old when, due to a club foot, a lazy eye, and societal expectations, she was taken by family members to Fairview. Her brother Jeff was only 6 years old and couldn't understand what was happening. Then Molly didn't come home. And then a year went by, then another, then a decade, and another. And then Molly had been gone for nearly 50 years. While no one in the family spoke of Molly, as the whole purpose of getting rid of her was to save face because people are awful, Jeff didn't forget about his sister. He just learned to not ask about her. And neither did her father. He would visit, but the exchanges, as they so often do in these scenarios, were too emotionally difficult for Molly. So instead of creating a plan to facilitate the meetings and her emotional needs, they told her father to stop visiting. So he did. Sort of. He wouldn't take no for an answer, so he decided to be a clown. Literally. Donning face makeup and a wig, he would go to the facility to perform with the troupe that he had founded the same year she went away, allowing him to check in on his daughter without upsetting her or the staff.
That makes that song Send in the Clowns have a totally different meaning.
Oh, that gave my heart goosebumps. Soon the family had another son and they moved on with their lives, but Jeff couldn't leave her behind. So while he had trained himself to stop thinking of her when he was a child, as an adult, he made it his life's mission to find his sister. When Jeff's father passed away, information was found, and 3 phone calls later, Jeff, with the help of his wife Cindy, was able to locate Molly. She was still institutionalized, but she had moved to a group home after Fairview had closed. All of that inspired Jeff to make a documentary in 2007 titled Where's Molly? Molly was nearing her 50th birthday. The siblings reunited and with a flood of emotions reconnected. Molly now had more severe disabilities than just the lazy eye and clubbed foot due to institutionalization, so Jeff wasn't able to learn from her directly what she had been through all alone for all those years.
How many times do you think you ran away while you were at Fairview?
More than I could count.
He did more than I did.
Did you ran away more than once too, though, huh?
Yeah, with a girl. Him and I ran away before, but before I met him, I was running away with a girl.
Okay, they'd come and chase you
and bring us back and shackle us to the bed.
Okay.
My dad couldn't take care of me because him and my mother died, and I had my sister and my brother. 3 of us, and he couldn't take care of us. So he had my aunt Alice. She took care of me for a while, and she's the one that decided to put me there. Yeah, I went to the 3rd grade.
Okay.
And we went to school, and we're supposed to go to school, cooking and sewing, and play basketball.
Did they teach you stuff besides cooking and sewing? Did they teach you, like, reading and writing, arithmetic, things like that?
A little bit, off and on, yeah. They strapped the girls down sometimes.
In the beds? Or?
In the bed. And on the girls' cottage, they did. They scald them and stuff like that.
Scald?
Scald them with hot water.
Wow.
They did. So most of the girls, they don't behave themselves, they get in there and scald them. Hot water.
The staff would do that?
Yeah.
Yeah. As punishment?
Yeah. I think us girls were scared.
Yeah.
We were frightened and scared. If we say something, tell on somebody, we would get, in trouble.
Sadly, Molly passed away just before her 60th birthday, allowing her to be with her family for the last 10 years of her life. You can order the DVD Where's Molly from where'smolly.net, and it really is a very interesting story about family dynamics of the shame and stigma that went with all of this. He talks about that he would ask his parents all the time about his sister, and then really he just had to give up, and that he reconnected with his wife, who had been his middle school girlfriend, spoiler alert.
Oh.
And then they reconnected, and her first question was, how's your mom, how's your dad, how's Molly? And he was like, I had trained myself to not think about it. And so they were able, so it's a very fascinating, heart-wrenching story. I know what you're thinking, but Alisha, this is true crime and Halloween, and all you've done is bum us out. I know. So here's the spooky side.
Ooh, spooky.
Hi everyone, I'm Talia, attorney and co-host of the true crime podcast, Crimes and Consequences. Listen to Crimes and Consequences to hear your favorite true crime cases, plus many murder stories you've never heard before. At Crimes and Consequences, we dive deep into the details of the crime, so if you have a fascination with the morbid side of human nature, you're really going to want to check us out. Go to Apple, Google, Spotify, Stitcher, and anywhere else you listen to your favorite true crime stories, and subscribe to Crimes and Consequences, a hardcore true crime podcast.
For a study of a 25-year period, 1963 to 1987, 52 unnatural deaths were documented from the Institute. But that's only for 25 of its nearly 100-year history, and those are the documented unnatural deaths. Then there is an issue of the remains that remain. Thousands of cremated former patients are warehoused, forgotten by accident or, more likely on purpose, by the families, just gathering dust as they wait to be brought home. So a person with any kind of mental health issue, plus a hospital-like facility, plus 100 years, plus abuse and deaths equals ghost stories. One of which is that there is a woman that wanders the grounds where Fairview was. She would show up at night and usually walk around the school, but never caused any harm, and her name is unknown. Then there is the male apparition that is seen in the kitchen of what was considered to be the most violent cottage, although there have been no reports of him being violent or aggressive to those that have claimed to witness him. He's still very spooky. Of course, there's the typical, if you go there at night, there are screams and cries and sobs heard, and the typical boring mental health facility haunts. And then there's this. On the property was a cistern, which I had to Google. And
You didn't know what it was?
No, and I knew that you guys probably both know what it is. Mm-hmm. Would either of you like to give a better description than what I figured out? What did you put?
Google? What did you Google?
That it's like a large underwater tank for holding water, but there's like columns and stuff. It's like big.
Yeah,
I've never seen inside. I just know the word. I've never seen one before.
Yeah, it looks like it looks like a flooded.
It's like a flood chamber.
Yeah. I don't know, something out of a movie.
It's a man-made water tank.
Yeah, it's like a huge walkable septic system.
Yeah. I didn't know that it had to be man-made. I thought there probably are natural cisterns.
They're probably
right?
well, it's kind of like they're natural wells.
Oh, true.
Baby Jessica.
Yeah, too soon. Well, one day in 1923. Roll call was being taken in class, and a young boy by the name of Holly Pollock didn't respond to his name being called. As running away or attempting to do so wasn't unusual for the patients that had the physical ability to, the staff assumed that was the case. 3 weeks went by, and if I had to guess, family members were not informed that their son was missing, but he still was. Then a nurse started to run water for her laundry.
Oh, no.
But something didn't look right. As it had happened now and again, she assumed an animal had gotten into the cistern. As more water ran, chunks started to come out of the faucet. And what the chunks were started to become clearer. They were chunks of hair and chunks of flesh. The cistern was checked, and that was when the body of Holly Pollock was found. He had drowned. And that is all there is to Holly's story. Not one word of an investigation, nothing proving he had attempted to run away, and not that he was just victimized as so many mentally and physically disabled persons are, just that his body decomposed to the point that it was coming through the water pipes.
That is horrific and reminds me of that case.
The girl in California at the hotel.
Alyssa.
Mm-hmm.
Is that her name?
Oh my gosh, what is her name?
Alyssa something?
That for me is that's my Jean Bonnet. That's my I need more answers on that case.
That's a good case because they have all that video too of her. Yeah, my gut is something went down and he was put there.
Yeah. Because it's one thing to go exploring if you're a kid, but it's too many things. At the very least, it's neglect.
A premise of a horror movie waiting to happen. Mm-hmm. Was it the kids? Did they gang up on him? Was it a doctor? Oof.
Tales are now told about that part of the property, that cars nearest the cistern will often not start, that even though it is now boarded up, you can hear cries from the cistern, that the figure of a young boy can be seen near it. Perhaps it's Holly, distraught over what happened to him, maybe trying to bring attention to his death so an investigation could take place, haunting in hopes of being heard.
That is a very sad bunch of stories.
You're welcome.
I'm greatly affected by stories of this similar nature all over the U.S. Mm-hmm. Actually, it was
Oregon State, and I mean the big one that I mean, I could probably do a whole separate series on the stuff that went down, including the mass poisoning I read about.
We could probably do an
last night.
entire season of just.
Yeah.
I think we touched on one, which was from our live show, a guy that was in there. I did his case, but wow, that's really sad. And I just wonder of what those poor kids went through. And
yeah, I think these kind of cases, it always, for me, it always is just, it's so weird that I haven't heard it. To know that,
I didn't know that. I didn't know that case.
This is not 100 years ago. This is the year I was born. They stopped eugenics. You know, like that.
Well, I knew that just because I took a class in college on it, which was really shocking at the time, learning about how long those laws were in order. You know, people. And there's still people that want to follow them.
I definitely have opinions of sometimes how I feel about who should have kids or not, but that is not for.
But that's you bring up a good point. I've heard a lot of people say, "Oh, some people just shouldn't have kids," like, or you need a test to have a kid, but that's eugenics. Like,
exactly,
your little jab affected thousands of people.
Yeah, it's hard because I, as someone that ends up working with the children that are usually a product of people's choices. When I have a kid that can't function because his brain is literally not there. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to work in that and not think that way. So I can see where that would be like, oh, this would be beneficial because, this person can't physically take care of themselves. Of course, I'm sure they saw it as doing a favor.
But in the case of the kids you work with, I feel like it's more of a your right should get taken away because you've done this, not a you should never have had.
Oh no, I'm saying it's more like it's easy to see where you could. I mean, I know obviously there's horrific people that are abusing and all of that, but there is just that feeling, at least for me, of there's so much pain and hurt for that kid, whether they're wishing they could be, quote, normal or, their physical pain, those kind of things where you're like, you don't want to see that continue to happen, So but it's just not okay. And period.
I know. Well, and I remember back in high school doing, a speech class and everyone had to do an argumentative speech or try to convince people to think your point of view. What is that called?
Debate?
Forensics.
It has a special name. Anyway.
Talking to Emily?
Mine was about eugenics and about, adjusting DNA, picking and choosing your babies and how we need to tighten our laws because once it gets blurry, people have designer babies. Right. I want them to have blue eyes. I want it to have blonde hair. It is very scary, the types of people out there just playing along that line.
Chrissy Teigen comes to mind only because she just lost her baby. And it was a whole uproar, social media, because people are horrific and, not being sympathetic. But that just comes to mind because I know they're very open about that they have designer babies and they choose the sex and they, and it's like, yeah, at what point do you get to say
what's right and what's
wrong?
Yeah,
why do you get to go so extreme that way of picking and choosing and then you think that you can also go this extreme? It's... Yeah, it's messy. And it's like, well, you can't even go there. You can't even start playing with that because, where is that line?
Yep. And then I think in my speech, I brought up the movie Gattaca because, of course, I'm me. I couldn't help it.
That was actually your starting point.
It
okay,
did.
how am I going to talk about
It
Gattaca?
was my opening. I connected Gattaca to Hitler. And then, boom, you guys, I'm going to shock you with, you may think this way and not realize you're aligning with the way Hitler thought.
Yeah, exactly.
Hello, people.
Yeah. Yeah, the casual... I think especially in our culture, it's the casual, you should have to have a drug test before you can get food stamps. And then you should have this before you get, and it's like, yeah, you can't go there. You can't start who is anyone to decide what anyone else is allowed to have or not have or any of that. And Hitler was a bad guy. So yeah, you don't want to be on his team. You guys, did you know
he
that?
was a bad guy with ideals that a lot of people still have.
Yeah.
So
obviously.
Yeah, Alisha. Just kidding. I just like to bring that up that it's really easy to kind of get closer to that line is what I'm saying for the average person.
Oh, for sure. So those are just some of the far too many ghastly stories from just one mental institution from back in the day. Mentally unwell, developmentally delayed, physically handicapped, these men, women, and children deserved more than to be marked as a runaway or to be found dead or to only sit as a bag of ashes waiting to be claimed. If hearing about forced sterilization was upsetting to you because you experience emotions, please check out unitedwedream.org for information on how you can support the women that are in ICE custody that are currently receiving forced hysterectomies. It has one of my favorite lines ever in music. It's take my love, I'll never ask for too much, just all that you are and everything that you do. And it's like, funny. You know, that is asking a little much.
Literally everything.
There's nowhere to hide. You're the love that I'll remember forever. Don't make me close one more door. Get those high notes, girl. I don't want to hurt anymore. Go for it. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I don't think I can, man.
Stay in my arms. It was interesting because you're like, whoa, that's hot. And then it's like, whoa, that's scary. And then it's like, are you grabbing her fallopian tubes? Like,
I'm braiding them. Well, he didn't know how to use his tool set. And she said it was literally out of Sex and the City, like a jackhammer. She couldn't walk the next day. She called in sick.
I've always said, the bigger the dick, the bigger the dick. I'm already very bored with this.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Thanks.
I mean, maybe we'll get on that yacht.
Right? That's what I said.
If you motherfuckers don't bring me, I'm going to freak out.
There is nothing better than early morning, open the balcony doors and just listen to the ocean, drinking coffee. But they're fine. They do well. They have a big house, lots of pets.
They don't have Australia money.
No.
I don't. I don't even have Australian licorice money.
I'm trying to get you riled up for your spooky
I can fucking tell. I'm fine.
Both of us, we're like, we're going to get her today.
I specifically said.
Wait. Like that?
20 minutes later.
Can you do that slower?
There you go.
I remember.
It's been a while.
I have a light that hangs over where I put my desk, which is my dining room, and I've hit my head on it a couple of times, barely. I fucking nailed my head last night. Like, I got up, hit it, shattered.
Jesus.
And I stood there like, what the fuck?
Because they talk about specifics. They're like,
and they chalk it up.
Oh yeah, the cheating.
Guys, stop making fun of me. This is too far.
No, I can't say I hang around with the kind of kids that would be playing a clarinet, my friend.
First off, your
my
judgment,
kid's too cool for that.
You're a bully to children, as you are to all people. That would be awesome. Cool.
Hey,
I never hit it. And like, damn.
Quit it.
Did you tell your grandma a story?
Guess what? I'm over it and I rewrote it. Here we go. I will say.
That's the name of the episode.
I will say. You sure will.
Right there.
That's what you do. You just keep saying.
Just a loop.
She just hit her nose on the microphone.
Oh, keep watch.
That door doesn't lock. You say the State Board of Eugenics?
Yes.
Yeah. Took a while to understand that. Whoa.
There were multiple. All of these claims led to an investigation and substantiation. Led to an investigation and substantiation. Why do I do this to myself?
Were you born in 81?
79.
Oh, these are 70s.
Gen X, motherfucker. Just got in there.
You did.
Murder in the Rain is produced and edited by Josh McCullough. Written and hosted by Emily Rowney and Alisha Holland. Artwork by Jamie Costa. Music by Kai Pfeiffer at kyfifer.com. Check out our website, murderintherain.com, for additional information on all cases, a fun interactive map, and be sure to subscribe so you can receive our newsletter. Check out the Mad Props page for coupon codes from some of our sponsors. We love your reviews and seeing them on all streaming platforms, especially iTunes. And check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And suck my balls.
Please put that in.